ways to do that. One of the ways would be on our website, we have a feature where if you sign our petition, it instantly emails your senator and delegate, as well as puts you in our network. So we'd be happy to facilitate that, or if you have an organization that could use a presentation, maybe a little longer than this, or a little more tied in to the locality there, we'd be happy to do that. Between Tram and all the other good folks, myself, that are around the state, we would love to do a part of that. And it's been successful. And what's the beauty in this, I'll tell you, is that I'm speaking to Tea Party members on the right, I'm speaking to Green Party members on the left, Libertarians, Chambers of Commerce, all of the above to get this, and everyone thinks this is we're in good shape for this. So we're excited about that, and it's making a difference. And I'll tell you that the General Assembly members are experiencing pressure on this issue. First of all, they didn't think anybody cared. They're learning that's not true. And second of all, they thought it was only at best a liberal or a conservative, a liberal or a moderate issue, and they're learning that it's a across-the-board issue that everybody cares about, and that's a real nice thing to be in that kind of position. So we've even got members of the House of Delegates to change their mind. So here's, I got, how committed are state Senate Dems to advance redrawing? Thanks, Irvin, that's a great question. How committed are state Senate Democrats to advance redrawing the districts, especially if they would regain control in 2016? Would there simply be a stalemate with the House? So the Senate Dems are in favor of reform. They are not universally in favor of reform. There are a few folks that would quibble over an independent commission or would rather draw it themselves. Generally speaking, though, the Senate Dems aren't the problem. It's the House Republicans. So the Senate Dems are mostly committed. There's a number of them that are incredibly committed to it, and there's a number of them that are also afraid not to be committed to it. So that's don't assume that if you're talking to a Senate Dem that they're all on board completely and wholeheartedly. Tell them how much it means to you, and that will matter to them as well. The governor's committed to this, and then, of course, the House Dems are committed to this because it would take them back to something more reasonable other than the supermajority that the House Republicans enjoy now. There could be a stalemate in 2016, but what we likely think is going to happen is that the House of Delegates case that's currently pending about the voting right, about the majority-minority districts now, we think that'll come down soon, and they'll be under court order to redraw those districts. We think that the redraw of those districts is going to force a conversation of reform, because the one thing that Speaker Howell, who's a big opponent of this, the one thing that Speaker Howell fears more than any kind of good government effort we all on this phone could come up with to fix the way we redistrict, he fears more the courts drawing his caucus's lines. And that's what's likely to happen. I mean, that's what's happening now for the congressional district, but they don't care so much about those because those aren't their districts. But when it comes to their districts, it will matter. And then there's the likelihood of a special election for the House in November of 2016, which petrifies about 14 Republicans specifically because they live in districts that Obama and Kaine carried previously. So that makes a major, major difference on our negotiating and leverage here to keep things through. And I think, generally speaking, the Senate Dems are afraid if they regain control, they don't want to be seen in the negative light of this. And keep in mind that if they regain control for 2016, that doesn't mean they'll have control for 2021 when they're redistricting again. So they need to carry through one more election. So the pressure is important, and the pot is stirring in all the right ways for us to get reform. Alexandra, would you mind telling us which Senate Dems are against redistricting? So the two that stood up against an independent commission are George Barker and Dick Saslaw. Barbara Favola also voted against it, but since I've talked to her and she said that vote was a mistake and she'd be happy to be on board. Senator Puller voted against the independent commission, but Senator Puller is not going to be serving anymore, so there's that. And Senator John Edwards voted against an independent redistricting commission, and hopefully we can convince him otherwise. So I think that covers all the folks that did. It's SJ 284 if you're keeping score on that. Either way, let me be clear, all of those Senate Democrats, even though they voted against an independent commission, voted for other types of reform, which is a good place to be in. What are we doing, Ann Gray Haynes? What are we doing about Senator Saslaw? I think he's a hopeless case, quite frankly. The good news is that Dick Saslaw and George Barker strategized and led the Senate Dems on kind of a bad path to take in 2011. Instead of standing their ground for reform in 2011 when they could have gummed up the works and forced reform, what they did is they took the low road and they gerrymandered their Senate districts, and that's why we live in these weird Senate districts that we have now. Unfortunately for them, they lost their majority anyway. So the Democratic caucus is, I think, generally speaking, not thrilled about the fact that they lost their majority, and it took the low road and lost their majority. So they didn't even, they could have been principled and lost their majority if they'd wanted to, but they didn't even get that. So that's quite a coup for them, and I think what that means is that's why you only saw 6 Democratic senators vote against the biggest plan we had this past session, is because I don't think the anti-reform group is in the Senate caucus is leading them as strongly as folks who are pro-reform, like Senator McEachin and Senator Miller and a number, Senator Howell and a number of others that stand up in favor of reform. So that's a good thing to know and a good thing to be in place of. The Senate Republican caucus, I think, they're pretty lockstep behind reform. They think Senator Jill Vogel, who's the chair of Privileges and Elections, she voted for this. She carried our biggest bill. She co-sponsored it with Senator Louise Lucas. So the Senate Republicans are pretty much lockstep in favor of this. There's a few that aren't occasionally, but really it's the minority in the Senate. We would lose a few votes if they thought it would really pass in the House. That's definitely possible, but we have a few to lose in the Senate. We only need 21. So we can get it out of the Senate. I feel pretty good about that. As far as what to do this coming this coming election, we would love to have folks all over the state work the polls. And there's a number of messages you could have depending on what's going on in your locality. One is, who supports reform? I mean, maybe there's a competitive election where you live. It's unlikely, but maybe there is. And if you live in a competitive election, then we'd be happy to provide you with the information. Candidate questionnaire is already out. We're getting responses back. We're getting a lot of no responses. So we'd love to, wiggle them a little bit to get them to give us a real response on this and how they propose to fix it. But we're happy in October to start releasing all of this and to say who's with us and who's against us. And that would give us ammo to go out and say, hey, here's where these candidates stand on the issues. There's a lot of places, though, where there isn't a competitive election where both candidates support reform, or maybe where there's only one person on the ballot. People are still going to come out and vote, and those are the people we really need to reach. So even if you think your vote in your precinct won't matter, if you'd be willing to staff this and talk about redistricting reform and ask people to sign a petition to make it better, we can arm and equip you with that. We've got a lot of coalition partners that are interested in doing this, and we'd love to have you all join us in that. If you're ever interested in signing a petition or sending it out, if you go to One Virginia 2021's website and you go /petition, it will be right there for you. Folks, I'm pretty excited about all that we've got going on here, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you all. Are there other questions? Because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm grateful for your interest and concern here. And if there are ways that we can work together, I would certainly love that. A lot of good people on this call. That the GoToWebinar lets me see the names, and I'm just really blown away and very grateful for that. All right, Irvin, how do you feel about Chap Peterson's redistricting plan? So Chap Peterson's redistricting plan was, and I think it's exactly what it was, but maybe it was the origin of it was that, and then it was tweaked. But it was the winning map from UVA in the 2011 redistricting plan. Chap Peterson's a redistricting reform supporter. Grateful to have his support. Think that was a good map. It passes the eyeball test. The numbers on it, I believe, are pretty good. I don't exactly know because I didn't see all of them, but the idea being that we're a process-oriented group, and I think that's the only way to keep this coalition as broad as it is. We can't talk about outcomes the way that politicians do, because the moment we start talking about outcomes, then I lose somebody on one side of the aisle or the other in our coalition. And what makes this strong is that we've got multi-partisan support on this effort. But Chap Peterson's map, I think, would be a little bit more of an equilibrium map for bringing it back to Democrats. And I also think it would have done better for communities of color than the current map system we're under. But that being said, I haven't seen a racial voting block analysis, which is important to do that. And I don't know if they did that in the UVA map. Mary asked, what's the timeline on the House of Delegates court case? Well, the court case was heard in early July, Mary, and so we should be hearing back at any time now soon. The Bobby Scott case, which was the same a similar three-judge panel, came back in 6 months. So possibly it could take quite a while. We hope that's not the case because the issues have been tried and heard, and hopefully we'll be able to move through it. Yeah, so that's a good question, Mary. Gotcha. Any other questions we got here? Oh, thanks. You're welcome, man. I love the questions. You guys are great, and be happy to talk in more depth about any of these things if you'd like, but want to wrap this up now and give you, unless there are other questions out there, but I do want to really thank the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy here, not only for hosting this, but for helping us organize this, the Virginia Coalition for Immigrant Rights as well. Thank you all so much for reaching out to your folks, and for those folks on the call, I'm really grateful for you to be, as well as New Virginia Majority, Tram and all the staff over there helping to push this out and fight. Our coalition is broad. It includes AARP, the League of Women Voters, VEA, Tea Parties around the state, some chambers around the state. It's really awesome. It's the one kind of issue you can talk about at your Thanksgiving table and not offend even the grumpy grandpa or the young idealistic freshman from college who just got home and is pretty far left at this moment. So it's the one thing that we can all agree on, and that's really a beautiful thing to find in politics. So Anne Gray, that's very kind. Thank you. Thank you all for this. And if there's anything I can do, director@onevirginia2021.org. Even if I can direct you to TRAM or anybody at the Virginia Interfaith Center or the Virginia Coalition for Immigrant Rights, let me know. Thank you guys so much. And if you have folks, you can tell them about this. We'll do this again at 7 o'clock, and I'll be even better at using GoToWebinar. So thank you all. Take care, everyone. 5 words. Oh, Federico, 5 words you can repeat over and over again. Stop carving up our neighborhoods, right? That would be stop carving up our communities, stop carving up our neighborhoods, and gerrymandered. That's a good way to think about it.